Most people imagine the Maldives as a luxurious destination full of fancy overwater bungalows. But what most people don't know is that it's possible to travel to some insanely stunning places here for less than the cost of a normal life back home. We spent a full 30 days traveling in the Maldives, including epic tours to deserted sandbanks, swimming with sharks, world-class snorkeling, and eating out for every single meal. Even after all that, we still spent half of the average monthly spending for a family of 2 in the United States. Here's what it's like living in paradise for 30 days in exactly what we spent on hotels, tours, food, transportation, and other expenses. First things first, there are 2 ways to travel in the Maldives: on the resort islands or on the local islands. The government didn't allow tourism on these local islands until 2009, so this is still a pretty new concept. We're here during low season, and I can count on 2 hands the number of tourists we've seen on each of these islands. Each island has a range of options for different budgets, but everywhere we stayed had impeccable service, comfortable air-conditioned rooms, and big breakfasts, and we paid on average $40 to $70 per night. During our 30 days, we spent a total of $1,435 on accommodation. From these local islands, your guest house can take you out on the same excursions as you do in the resorts, and we'll get to those in just a sec. That said, these local islands are far from perfect, and if you're expecting it just to be a cheap version of a resort, you'll be disappointed. I'll make a whole video on the differences between the 2, but the most important things to know are that these local islands are 100% Muslim islands, which means you need to stay covered up with clothes unless you're on a designated bikini beach. Not everyone respects these cultural rules, but you really should. They're letting you visit their home, so you should play by their rules. There's also no alcohol available on the islands, and you'll probably see a lot of trash and rubble and broken down buildings and construction projects. As you can imagine, waste management can be a little bit tricky on these inhabited islands that are way out in the middle of nowhere. But really, you don't come to a place like this to admire the clean streets and impressive architecture. You're here to chill on some of the most beautiful and uncrowded beaches in the world and do some awesome water activities. You can spend your entire vacation hopping around these local islands and have an incredible time, and that's exactly what many of the people I met were doing. That said, if you're like me and you're flying all the way out here, you may want to knock staying at an overwater bungalow off your bucket list, even if it's just for a night or 2. We actually weren't even planning on doing this, but halfway through our stay, Noe Maldives Kunavashi invited us to stay on their private island in their brand new resort for a few days. It was everything you would imagine staying in an overwater bungalow is like, and more. Never in my life did I imagine being able to stay at a place like this, but our YouTube subscribers like you made it possible. So thanks to you and to Noe for recognizing our awesome Project Untethered community. First, we spent the night in a beach villa, which walks out to a white sand beach with dance-worthy sunsets. Then we moved to the ginormous overwater bungalow with 2 stories, a glass floor, the best view I've ever had from a bed, snorkeling right off the deck, and a private pool. The beaches looked like postcards, and there was so much to do that we struggled to cram it all in. We spent our time painting our own souvenirs and watching fishies through our glass kayak, but you can also have spa days, take epic snorkeling trips, and catch big old fish. We had an inclusive buffet with different theme nights each night, so we'd never get bored, and they're also opening up some fancy restaurants soon. But honestly, what made this place most memorable of all was the genuine connections that you make with the staff. After just 3 nights, we felt like we were leaving an island full of friends. Resorts like Noe are on their own private island, so you have the whole place to yourself. This allows you some extra freedom compared to staying on the local islands. Here, you're free to drink alcohol and wear whatever clothes that you want. On the local islands, you save some money, but you have to take the good with the bad. I'm just super grateful that we were able to experience both options. If you'd like more info about Noe, I'll link their Instagram below. Project Untethered viewers can also get a 10% room discount by booking through the email address on the screen and using the code UNTETHERED. Okay, but back to the local islands. How do you get to them and how much does it cost? Well, you can do it the cheap way or the expensive way. We kind of did a mix of both. taking a combination of public ferries, shared speedboats, and a private speedboat. In total, we spent $207. This included 8 boat rides ranging from 30 minutes to 3 hours each. Our cost could have actually been cheaper, but we had some bad weather days and we were forced to take the speedboat instead of the local ferry that was canceled. The local ferry system can be a little bit complicated to plan because between some islands, the ferries only run on certain days. But if you're able to figure it out, they cost as little as $1 to $3 depending on the distance. On the other hand, you have seaplanes and private speedboats that can cost several $100s per person. The kicker is that we actually preferred the local ferries because the bigger boat meant a smoother ride. I explained exactly how to use the local ferry system in a video I'm making on budget travel tips for the Maldives, so make sure to subscribe if you want to get notified for that one. But one thing that totally shocked me was just how organized all the services are in general. We traveled to 6 islands, switching from airports to taxis to boats to guest houses, and I think we barely had to pick up our backpacks for the entire trip. You just tell your guest house where you're coming from, and then magically everything just works itself out. It's like everyone is on the same page. You don't have to worry about anything like you do when traveling in other countries, because whatever the next step is in your journey, there's already someone waiting for you there to help you. Once you're on a local island, the food is surprisingly affordable. All of our guest houses included a big breakfast, and others offer full board included in the room price. We just went with breakfast only so that we had the freedom to eat in other places for the other meals. We ate mostly local dishes like chicken and tuna fried rice, kotu, curry, and sometimes grilled fish. On average, we spent $4 to $8 per person per meal. If you want Western food like pizza or spaghetti or wraps, the prices are about double. Overall, we spent $657 on lunches, dinners, and snacks, and we ate out for every single meal. Now, tours is one thing that can definitely add up, so you have to choose the ones you want to do wisely. We paid for 3 different tours. The first was a snorkeling trip to snorkel with nurse sharks and turtles and visit a sandbank, and that costed $45 per person. Then we did a snorkeling trip to see manta rays, and that costed $65 per person. Finally, we snorkeled with the big daddy whale sharks, and that costed $75 per person. Our total for tours came out to $395, which included some tips and extra charges for credit card fees. But if you're on a really tight budget, there are also some things you can do for free. All of our guest houses provided free snorkel gear to use and beach towels to use, and a lot of the beaches on these different islands have coral reefs right off the beach that have tons of different fish and stingrays, and sometimes you can see nurse sharks and even octopus. Now, there are some other tricks to save money on tours, but I'll cover all those in my Maldives budget tips video that I mentioned because this one is getting too long. We were also working online while we were traveling in the Maldives, and the Wi-Fi sucks on most islands, so we depended on our eSIM data plan to work. We used Airlo, and you can get some free credits using the discount code on the screen. We bought 2 plans of 30 gigabytes for 30 days that costed $50 each. We also always travel with travel insurance because I'm pretty accident prone, and my go-to insurance just cost $1.50 per day, and I'll link to that as well. And of course, when we got invited to the resort, we didn't want to roll up in a plain black t-shirt and those orange Aladdin pants, so we stopped at a small souvenir shop and bought some cool clothes for $35. All of this brings us to a grand total of $2,916. That's $97.20 per day, or $48.60 per person. Not bad considering that $5,782 is the average spending for a family of 2 in the United States, and those stats are from 2 years ago, so it's probably higher now. However, the one thing that we didn't cover today was flights, and those can be pretty expensive if you're coming all the way from the US. This video should help you with cheap flights for now. All right guys, bye-bye.